Do you want to successfully complete the D282 Objective Assessment exam? Then you are in the right place. Our website provides a list of questions and answers for your success in the D282 OA exam for free. We understand that acing your OA exam can be quite challenging. That's why we provide completely free exam guides and practice questions for you. In this video, we will cover questions from cloud services, infrastructure as code, serverless, data analytics, and security and compliance. So let's get started. 1. Which document sets out the terms of the audit engagement, including the scope, timing, and client responsibilities? A. Management letter. B. Audit report. C. Audit strategy. D. Engagement letter. Do you know the answer? Correct answer: D. Engagement letter. Explanation: option D is correct because the engagement letter is the formal contract between the auditor and the client. It clearly defines the objectives of the audit, the responsibilities of both the auditor and management, the scope of the work, and the expected deliverables, preventing misunderstandings. Option A is incorrect because a management letter is a communication from the auditor to the client at the conclusion of the audit, highlighting internal control deficiencies and offering recommendations. Option B is incorrect because the audit report is the final product of the audit, which expresses the auditor's opinion on the fairness of the financial statements. Option C is incorrect because the audit strategy is the auditor's internal plan that outlines the overall approach to the audit, which is developed after the engagement is accepted. 2. Which component of internal control focuses on identifying and responding to risks that may prevent an organisation from achieving its objectives? A. Control activities. B. Monitoring. C. Risk assessment. D. Information and communication. Do you know the answer? Correct answer: C. Risk assessment. Explanation: option C is correct because the risk assessment component of the COSO internal control framework involves the process of identifying, analysing, and managing risks relevant to the preparation of financial statements and the achievement of the organisation's objectives. Option A is incorrect because control activities are the specific policies and procedures like approvals and reconciliations that are implemented to help mitigate the risks identified during risk assessment. Option B is incorrect because monitoring involves ongoing evaluations to ascertain whether the components of internal control are present and functioning effectively over time. Option D is incorrect because information and communication is the component that ensures relevant information is identified and communicated throughout the organisation to support the other control components. Three. An auditor is verifying whether recorded liabilities on the balance sheet actually exist. Which assertion is the auditor addressing? A. Completeness. B. Accuracy. C. Existence. D. Valuation. Do you know the answer? Correct answer: C. Existence. Explanation: option C is correct because the existence assertion addresses whether assets, liabilities, and equity interests included in the financial statements actually exist at a given date. The auditor is testing if the recorded liabilities are real obligations of the company. Option A is incorrect because the completeness assertion addresses whether all liabilities that should have been recorded have actually been included. It is concerned with unrecorded items. Option B is incorrect because the accuracy assertion relates to whether the amounts and other data concerning the liabilities have been recorded correctly. Option D is incorrect because the valuation assertion concerns whether liabilities are included in the financial statements at appropriate amounts. 4. Which phase of the audit includes understanding the client and its environment, including its internal controls? A. Risk response. B. Risk assessment. C. Reporting. D. Substantive testing. What do you think is the answer? Correct answer, B. Risk assessment. Explanation. Option B is correct because the risk assessment phase is the initial stage where the auditor gathers information about the client's business, industry, and internal control systems to identify and assess the risks of material misstatement. Option A is incorrect because the risk response phase involves designing and performing audit procedures to address the risks identified in the assessment phase. Option C is incorrect because the reporting phase is the final stage where the auditor evaluates the audit evidence and issues the audit report. Option D is incorrect because substantive testing is a part of the risk response phase, not a separate phase itself. 5. What is the purpose of performing substantive procedures during an audit? A. To form an opinion on the financial statements. B. To test the design of internal controls. C. To evaluate the effectiveness of controls. D. To gather evidence about specific transactions and balances. Can you guess the answer? Correct answer, D. To gather evidence about specific transactions and balances. Explanation. Option D is correct because substantive procedures are designed to detect material misstatements at the assertion level. They include tests of details of transactions and balances, and substantive analytical procedures to gather evidence about their validity, accuracy, and completeness. Option A is incorrect because forming an opinion is the overall objective of the audit, and substantive procedures are just one type of procedure used to achieve it. Option B is incorrect because testing the design of internal controls is done through risk assessment procedures like walkthroughs. Option C is incorrect because evaluating the operating effectiveness of controls is the purpose of tests of controls, not substantive procedures. 6. When should an auditor issue an adverse opinion? A. When the client has significant internal control deficiencies. B. When financial statements are materially misstated and not in accordance with GAAP. C. When the client refuses to provide certain requested documents. D. When the auditor is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Do you know the answer? Correct answer, B. When financial statements are materially misstated and not in accordance with GAAP. Explanation. Option B is correct because an adverse opinion is issued when the auditor has obtained sufficient evidence and concludes that misstatements, individually or in aggregate, are both material and pervasive to the financial statements, meaning they do not present a fair view. Option A is incorrect because significant deficiencies in internal control would be communicated to management, and those charged with governance and could lead to a modified opinion on the effectiveness of internal control, but not necessarily an adverse opinion on the financial statements themselves. Option C is incorrect because a client's refusal to provide documents is a scope limitation, which would likely lead to a qualified opinion or a disclaimer of opinion, not an adverse one. Option D is incorrect because an inability to obtain sufficient evidence is a scope limitation, which typically results in a qualified opinion or a disclaimer of opinion. 7. Which of the following is an example of a detective control? A. Segregation of duties. B. Reconciliation of bank statements. C. Authorization of transactions. D. Physical security controls. Can you guess the answer? Correct answer. B. Reconciliation of bank statements. Explanation. Option B is correct because a detective control is designed to find errors or irregularities after they have occurred. Reconciling a bank statement allows a company to identify discrepancies between its cash records and the bank's records. Option A is incorrect because segregation of duties is a preventive control designed to stop fraud or error from happening in the first place by ensuring no single person has control over all parts of a transaction. Option C is incorrect because authorization of transactions is a preventive control that ensures transactions are approved by appropriate personnel before they are executed. Option D is incorrect because physical security controls, like locks on a warehouse, are preventive controls designed to safeguard assets from theft or damage. 8. Which risk refers to the susceptibility of a financial statement assertion to a misstatement before considering any related controls? A. Control risk. B. Detection risk. C. Inherent risk. D. Audit risk. Can you guess the answer? Correct answer. C. Inherent risk. Explanation. Option C is correct because inherent risk is the risk of a material misstatement in an assertion, assuming there were no related internal controls. It stems from the nature of the business or the complexity of the transactions. Option A is incorrect because control risk is the risk that a material misstatement will not be prevented or detected on a timely basis by the entity's internal controls. Option B is incorrect because detection risk is the risk that the auditor's procedures will fail to detect a material misstatement that exists. Option D is incorrect because audit risk is the overall risk that the auditor will express an inappropriate opinion when the financial statements are materially misstated. It is a function of inherent risk, control risk, and detection risk. 9. What is the purpose of the management representation letter? A. To outline the responsibilities of the audit committee. B. To confirm management's responsibility for the financial statements. C. To serve as primary audit evidence. D. To document disagreements between management and auditors. Can you guess the answer? Correct answer. B. To confirm management's responsibility for the financial statements. Explanation. Option B is correct because the management representation letter is a formal document from the client's management to the auditor, confirming management's responsibility for the fairness of the financial statements and disclosing all relevant information. Option A is incorrect because the responsibilities of the audit committee are typically outlined in the committee's charter or corporate governance documents, not the management representation letter. Option C is incorrect because this letter is considered corroborating evidence, but cannot be a substitute for other necessary audit procedures. It is not primary evidence. Option D is incorrect because while disagreements might be noted elsewhere in audit documentation, the representation letter's purpose is to confirm representations made during the audit, not to document disputes. 10. An auditor has identified a deficiency in internal controls that is important enough to merit attention by those charged with governance, but not severe enough to be a material weakness. What is this deficiency called? A. Significant deficiency. B. Control weakness. C. Internal control deficiency. D. Material misstatement. Do you know the answer? Correct answer. A. Significant deficiency. Explanation. Option A is correct because a significant deficiency is defined in auditing standards as a deficiency, or a combination of deficiencies, in internal control that is less severe than a material weakness, yet important enough to merit attention by those charged with governance. Option B is incorrect because control weakness is a general, non-technical term. Significant deficiency is the specific technical term used in auditing standards. Option C is incorrect because internal control deficiency is the broad category that includes all types of control issues, from minor ones to material weaknesses. This answer is not specific enough. Option D is incorrect because a material misstatement is an error in the financial statements, which may be the result of a control deficiency, but it is not the deficiency itself. 11. What type of risk exists when an auditor concludes that a material misstatement exists when it does not? A. Control risk. B. Inherent risk. C. Risk of incorrect rejection. D. Detection risk. Can you guess the answer? Correct answer. C. Risk of incorrect rejection. Explanation. Option C is correct because the risk of incorrect rejection, also known as alpha risk, occurs in substantive testing when an auditor's sample results lead them to incorrectly conclude that a material misstatement exists in a population when it does not. Option A is incorrect because control risk is the risk that a client's internal controls will fail to prevent or detect a material misstatement. Option B is incorrect because inherent risk is the susceptibility of an assertion to a material misstatement, assuming no related controls. Option D is incorrect because detection risk is the broader risk that the auditor's procedures will not detect a misstatement that actually exists. In which phase of the audit would an auditor review client-prepared financial statements for material misstatements and form an opinion? A. Risk assessment. B. Risk response. C. Reporting. D. Planning. Can you guess the answer? Correct answer. C. Reporting. Explanation. Option C is correct because the reporting phase is the culmination of the audit process. It involves evaluating the audit evidence gathered, assessing the fairness of the financial statements, and forming and issuing the final audit opinion. Option A is incorrect because the risk assessment phase involves understanding the entity and identifying risks, which happens at the beginning of the audit. Option B is incorrect because the risk response phase is where the auditor performs tests of controls and substantive procedures to gather evidence. Option D is incorrect because the planning phase, which is part of the broader risk assessment phase, involves developing the overall audit strategy and plan before executing the audit procedures. Which of the following is an example of a substantive test of details? A. Reviewing sales invoices for accuracy. B. Testing the design of internal controls. C. Observing physical inventory counts. D. Analysing trends in financial data. What do you think is the answer? Correct answer. A. Reviewing sales invoices for accuracy. Explanation. Option A is correct because a substantive test of details involves examining individual transactions and balances to verify their correctness. Reviewing the details on a sales invoice, such as quantity, price, and customer information, is a classic example. Option B is incorrect because testing the design of internal controls is a risk assessment procedure, not a substantive test. Option C is incorrect because observing a physical inventory count is a test of details, but it primarily tests the existence of inventory. The question asks for a general example, and reviewing invoices is a clearer example of testing details for accuracy. Option D is incorrect because analysing trends in financial data is an example of substantive analytical procedures, which is a different category of substantive testing from tests of details. 14. What type of audit procedure is performed when an auditor selects source documents and traces them forward to the journal or ledger? A. Vouching. B. Tracing. C. Recalculation. D. Confirmation. Do you know the answer? Correct answer, B. Tracing. Explanation. Option B is correct because tracing follows the path of a transaction from its source document, like a shipping receipt, forward to its inclusion in the accounting records, such as the sales journal. This procedure is primarily used to test the completeness assertion. Option A is incorrect because vouching is the opposite of tracing. It involves selecting an item from the accounting records and going backward to find its supporting source document to test for existence or occurrence. Option C is incorrect because recalculation involves checking the mathematical accuracy of documents or records. Option D is incorrect because confirmation involves obtaining evidence directly from a third party, such as asking a customer to confirm an account. Receivable balance. (15) Which component of internal control focuses on ensuring that information is effectively communicated throughout an organisation? A. Control environment. B. Information and communication. C. Monitoring. D. Control activities. Do you know the answer? Correct answer, B. Information and communication. Explanation. Option B is correct because the information and communication component of the COSO framework is responsible for identifying, capturing, and exchanging information in a form and time frame that enables people to carry out their responsibilities, including their internal control duties. Option A is incorrect because the control environment sets the overall tone of the organisation and includes factors like integrity, ethical values, and competence of personnel. Option C is incorrect because monitoring assesses the quality of internal control performance over time. Option D is incorrect because control activities are the specific policies and procedures implemented to help ensure management directives are carried out. 16. An auditor calculates the times interest earned ratio. What is the auditor assessing? A. The company's ability to pay its long-term debt. B. The company's profitability. C. The company's liquidity. D. The company's efficiency. What do you think is the answer? Correct answer, A. The company's ability to pay its long-term debt. Explanation. Option A is correct, because the times interest earned ratio, calculated as earnings before interest and taxes divided by interest expense, is a solvency ratio. It measures a company's ability to meet its interest payment obligations, which is a key indicator of its long-term financial health. Option B is incorrect because profitability ratios, like net profit margin or return on assets, measure how well a company generates profits from its sales or assets. Option C is incorrect because liquidity ratios, like the current ratio, measure a company's ability to meet its short-term obligations. Option D is incorrect because efficiency ratios, like inventory turnover, measure how effectively a company is using its assets to generate sales. 17. A company's controls allow management to monitor the internal control process and make necessary adjustments. Which type of control is this? A. Preventive control. B. Detective control. C. Corrective control. D. Internal control deficiency. Do you know the answer? Correct answer, C. Corrective control. Explanation. Option C is correct because corrective controls are designed to fix problems that have been identified, often by detective controls. Making adjustments to the internal control process is an action taken to correct a weakness or issue. Option A is incorrect because a preventive control is designed to stop an error or irregularity from occurring in the first place, such as requiring a password to access a system. Option B is incorrect because a detective control is designed to find problems after they have occurred, such as reviewing an exception report. The action of adjusting is corrective. Option D is incorrect because an internal control deficiency is a weakness in the control system, not a type of control itself. 18. When an auditor is testing a client's payroll system, which type of audit procedure should they perform to detect unrecorded liabilities? A. Recalculate payroll expenses. B. Trace payroll transactions. C. Vouch payroll entries. D. Review subsequent payments. Can you guess the answer? Correct answer, D. Review subsequent payments. Explanation. Option D is correct because reviewing payments made after the balance sheet date can reveal liabilities that existed at year-end but were not recorded. For example, a payroll payment in January for work performed in December would indicate an unrecorded liability. This directly tests for completeness. Option A is incorrect because recalculating payroll expenses would test for accuracy, not completeness or unrecorded liabilities. Option B is incorrect because tracing payroll transactions from timecards to the payroll register would test for completeness of recorded payroll, but not necessarily liabilities that were never entered into the system. Option C is incorrect because vouching payroll entries from the register back to supporting documents would test for existence or occurrence, not for unrecorded items. 19. What is the primary focus of the audit risk model? A. Assessing the quality of internal controls. B. Reducing the likelihood of a material misstatement. C. Determining the effectiveness of the audit team. D. Ensuring compliance with regulatory requirements. Do you know the answer? Correct answer, B. Reducing the likelihood of a material misstatement. Explanation. Option B is correct because the audit risk model, Arkansas =IR hex CRXDR, is a conceptual tool used by auditors to manage the overall risk of the audit. By assessing inherent and control risks, auditors set a detection risk level that allows them to perform procedures aimed at reducing the risk of undetected material misstatements to an acceptably low level. Option A is incorrect because assessing control quality is a component of the model, specifically control risk, but not the primary focus of the entire model. Option C is incorrect because the model does not measure the effectiveness of the audit team itself, although team competence affects the actual detection risk. Option D is incorrect because while an audit helps ensure compliance, the audit risk model's primary focus is on the risk of material misstatement in the financial statements, not overall regulatory compliance. 20. Which assertion is most relevant when an auditor is concerned with the completeness of recorded expenses? A. Existence. B. Completeness. C. Accuracy. D. Valuation. Can you guess the answer? Correct answer, B. Completeness. Explanation. Option B is correct because the completeness assertion addresses whether all transactions and events that should have been recorded have been recorded. When testing expenses, the auditor wants to ensure that all expenses the company incurred are reflected in the financial statements. Option A is incorrect because the existence assertion tests whether recorded expenses actually occurred, which is the opposite concern of completeness. Option C is incorrect because the accuracy assertion tests whether the amounts of the recorded expenses are correct. Option D is incorrect because the valuation assertion, while related to accuracy, typically applies more to assets and liabilities to ensure they are recorded at the proper carrying amount. 21. What type of report is issued if an auditor determines that the financial statements are fairly presented, but there is an exception related to a material departure from GAAP? A. Qualified opinion. B. Disclaimer of opinion. C. Unqualified opinion. D. Adverse opinion. What do you think is the answer? Correct answer, A. Qualified opinion. Explanation. Option A is correct because a qualified opinion is issued when the financial statements are fairly presented, except for a specific issue. This is appropriate for a material, but not a pervasive departure from generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. Option B is incorrect because a disclaimer of opinion is issued when the auditor is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence and therefore cannot form an opinion. Option C is incorrect because an unqualified or unmodified opinion is issued when the auditor concludes that the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects. Option D is incorrect because an adverse opinion is issued when the misstatements are so material and pervasive that the financial statements as a whole are not fairly presented. 22. Which of the following procedures provides the auditor with evidence regarding the valuation assertion for inventory? A. Observing physical inventory counts. B. Reviewing the client's method of inventory valuation. C. Confirming inventory with third parties. D. Vouching inventory purchases to supplier invoices. Do you know the answer? Correct answer, B. Reviewing the client's method of inventory valuation. Explanation. Option B is correct because the valuation assertion concerns whether inventory is recorded at the appropriate amount. Reviewing the client's valuation method, such as lower of cost or market, and testing its application directly addresses this assertion. Option A is incorrect because observing physical inventory counts primarily provides evidence about the existence and condition of inventory, not its monetary value. Option C is incorrect because confirming inventory held by third parties provides evidence of existence and rights and obligations, but not necessarily its value. Option D is incorrect because vouching purchases to invoices provides evidence for the cost component of inventory, which supports valuation, but reviewing the overall method is a more direct test of the final valuation. (23) What is the auditor's primary objective when assessing a client's control environment? A. To identify potential material misstatements. B. To determine whether controls can be relied upon. C. To reduce audit risk. D. To form an audit opinion. What do you think is the answer? Correct answer, B. To determine whether controls can be relied upon. Explanation. Option B is correct because assessing the control environment, which includes management's attitude, integrity, and ethical values, helps the auditor understand the overall tone at the top. A strong control environment suggests that other internal controls are more likely to be effective and can be relied upon, potentially reducing the extent of substantive testing. Option A is incorrect because identifying potential misstatements is a broader goal of risk assessment procedures, not just the assessment of the control environment. Option C is incorrect because reducing audit risk is the overall goal of the audit. Assessing the control environment is just one step in achieving that goal. Option D is incorrect because forming an audit opinion is the final objective of the entire audit process, not just of assessing the control environment. 24. Which characteristic distinguishes an operational audit from a financial audit? A. Focus on efficiency and effectiveness. B. Focus on accuracy of financial statements. C. Compliance with GAAP. D. Emphasis on internal controls. Can you guess the answer? Correct answer. A. Focus on efficiency and effectiveness. Explanation. Option A is correct because an operational audit is a review of any part of an organization's operating procedures and methods for the purpose of evaluating its efficiency and effectiveness. The goal is to provide recommendations for improvement. Option B is incorrect because focusing on the accuracy of financial statements is the primary characteristic of a financial audit. Option C is incorrect because compliance with GAAP is the framework used in a financial audit, not an operational audit. Option D is incorrect because both types of audits consider internal controls, but a financial audit focuses on internal controls over financial reporting, while an operational audit looks at controls related to operational efficiency. (25) Which of the following tests would an auditor perform to assess the operating effectiveness of a client's internal controls? A. Analytical procedures. B. Tests of controls. C. Substantive testing. D. Risk assessment procedures. Can you guess the answer? Correct answer. B. Tests of controls. Explanation. Option B is correct because tests of controls are audit procedures designed to evaluate the operating effectiveness of controls in preventing or detecting and correcting material misstatements at the assertion level. Option A is incorrect because analytical procedures can be used as substantive tests or in planning and review, but they are not the primary method for testing the operating effectiveness of a specific control. Option C is incorrect because substantive testing is performed to detect material misstatements in account balances and transactions, not to test the effectiveness of controls. Option D is incorrect because risk assessment procedures are performed to obtain an understanding of the entity and its internal control, but not to test their operating effectiveness. 26. What is the primary purpose of substantive analytical procedures in an audit? A. To gather evidence about internal controls. B. To detect fraud. C. To assess the reasonableness of account balances. D. To review the design of controls. What do you think is the answer? Correct answer, C. To assess the reasonableness of account balances. Explanation. Option C is correct because substantive analytical procedures involve evaluations of financial information by a study of plausible relationships among both financial and non-financial data. They are used to obtain evidence about the reasonableness of account balances and identify potential misstatements. Option A is incorrect because evidence about internal controls is gathered through tests of controls. Option B is incorrect because while analytical procedures can help identify red flags that may indicate fraud, their primary purpose is to assess reasonableness, not specifically to detect fraud. Option D is incorrect because reviewing the design of controls is a risk assessment procedure, often done through inquiry and observation. 27. Which of the following is an example of a management responsibility in the financial reporting process? A. Reviewing the auditor's report. B. Preparing the financial statements. C. Testing internal controls. D. Performing substantive tests. Do you know the answer? Correct answer. B. Preparing the financial statements. Explanation. Option B is correct because management is explicitly responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with the applicable financial reporting framework. This includes designing, implementing, and maintaining internal control. Option A is incorrect because while management reads the auditor's report, reviewing it for accuracy is not one of their primary responsibilities in the financial reporting process. Option C is incorrect because testing internal controls is the responsibility of the auditor when conducting an audit. Management is responsible for implementing and monitoring controls. Option D is incorrect because performing substantive tests is an audit procedure carried out by the auditor to gather evidence. 28. What is the main objective of the control environment in an internal control system? A. To ensure compliance with laws and regulations. B. To monitor the effectiveness of controls. C. To set the tone for internal control policies and procedures. D. To identify potential fraud. What do you think is the answer? Correct answer. C. To set the tone for internal control policies and procedures. Explanation. Option C is correct because the control environment is the foundation of the COSO framework. It encompasses the integrity, ethical values, and competence of the entity's people, and it sets the tone at the top, which influences the control consciousness of its staff. Option A is incorrect because ensuring compliance is an overall objective of the internal control system, not just the control environment component. Option B is incorrect because monitoring the effectiveness of controls is a separate, distinct component of the internal control framework. Option D is incorrect because while a strong control environment helps prevent fraud, its primary objective is broader, establishing the overall foundation for control. 29. Which assertion is addressed when an auditor tests whether inventory recorded at year-end is properly valued according to GAAP? A. Completeness. B. Accuracy. C. Valuation. D. Existence. What do you think is the answer? Correct answer. C. Valuation. Explanation. Option C is correct because the valuation assertion deals with whether assets, liabilities, and equity interests are included in the financial statements at appropriate amounts. Testing that inventory is valued correctly, for example at the lower of cost or net realizable value, directly addresses this assertion. Option A is incorrect because completeness addresses whether all inventory that should be recorded has been recorded. Option B is incorrect because accuracy relates to the correctness of the individual calculations that make up the final value. But valuation is the broader assertion about conformity with GAAP. Option D is incorrect because existence addresses whether the inventory physically exists. What is the purpose of an integrated audit? A. To assess the effectiveness of both the financial statements and internal controls. B. To test internal controls only. C. To focus on regulatory compliance. D. To identify fraud risks in the financial statements. What do you think is the answer? Correct answer. A. To assess the effectiveness of both the financial statements and internal controls. Explanation. Option A is correct because an integrated audit, which is required for most public companies, combines an audit of financial statements with an audit of the company's internal control over financial reporting. The auditor issues two opinions, one on the financial statements and one on the effectiveness of internal controls. Option B is incorrect because an integrated audit explicitly includes the audit of the financial statements as well. Option C is incorrect because while regulatory compliance is a factor, the core purpose is the dual opinion on financial statements and internal controls. Option D is incorrect because identifying fraud risks is a critical part of any financial statement audit, but it is not the defining purpose of an integrated audit. 31. Which audit procedure is performed to verify that recorded transactions occurred and are legitimate? A. Tracing. B. Recalculation. C. Vouching. D. Inquiry. Can you guess the answer? Correct answer, C. Vouching. Explanation. Option C is correct because vouching involves selecting a transaction from the accounting records and following it back to the supporting source documents. This process verifies that the recorded transaction is valid and actually occurred, addressing the existence or occurrence assertion. Option A is incorrect because tracing goes in the opposite direction, from source document to accounting record to test for completeness. Option B is incorrect because recalculation checks mathematical accuracy. Option D is incorrect because inquiry involves asking questions of client personnel and is not sufficient on its own to verify a transaction's legitimacy. 32. What is the most reliable audit evidence? A. Internally generated reports. B. Verbal confirmation from management. C. Externally generated documents received directly by the auditor. D. Analytical procedures. Can you guess the answer? Correct answer, C. Externally generated documents received directly by the auditor. Explanation. Option C is correct because evidence is considered most reliable when it is obtained from a knowledgeable, independent source outside the client's entity and received directly by the auditor. Examples include bank confirmations and confirmations from customers. Option A is incorrect because internally generated reports are less reliable as they are created by the client and could be subject to manipulation or bias. Option B is incorrect because verbal confirmation from management is considered weak evidence due to potential bias and lack of documentation. It must be corroborated. Option D is incorrect because analytical procedures provide persuasive but not conclusive evidence, and their reliability depends on the quality of the underlying data. 33. Which type of opinion should an auditor issue if the financial statements are fairly presented, except for one material misstatement that does not pervasively affect the financials? A. Disclaimer of opinion. B. Qualified opinion. C. Unqualified opinion. D. Adverse opinion. What do you think is the answer? Correct answer, B. Qualified opinion. Explanation. Option B is correct because a qualified opinion is appropriate when the auditor concludes that misstatements are material but not pervasive to the financial statements. The report states that except for the effects of the matter, the financial statements are fairly presented. Option A is incorrect because a disclaimer of opinion is issued when the auditor cannot obtain sufficient appropriate evidence and thus cannot form an opinion. Option C is incorrect because an unqualified opinion is issued when there are no material misstatements. Option D is incorrect because an adverse opinion is issued when misstatements are both material and pervasive, meaning the financial statements as a whole are misleading. 34. An auditor is assessing a company's internal controls over financial reporting and identifies a control deficiency that could lead to a material misstatement. Which conclusion should the auditor reach? A. Significant deficiency. B. Internal control deficiency. C. Material weakness. D. Fraud risk. Can you guess the answer? Correct answer, C. Material weakness. Explanation: option C is correct because a material weakness is defined as a deficiency or combination of deficiencies in internal control such that there is a reasonable possibility that a material misstatement of the financial statements will not be prevented or detected on a timely basis. Option A is incorrect because a significant deficiency is less severe than a material weakness, though it is still important enough to merit attention. Option B is incorrect because internal control deficiency is a general term. Material weakness is the specific conclusion when the potential for a material misstatement exists. Option D is incorrect because while a material weakness could increase fraud risk, the term for the control issue itself is a material weakness. 35. What type of control is designed to prevent errors or fraud from occurring in the first place? A. Preventive controls. B. Detective controls. C. Corrective controls. D. Substantive controls. Do you know the answer? Correct answer, A. Preventive controls. Explanation: option A is correct because preventive controls are proactive measures implemented to stop errors, inaccuracies, or fraud before they happen. Examples include segregation of duties and transaction authorizations. Option B is incorrect because detective controls are designed to find errors or problems after they have occurred, such as bank reconciliations. Option C is incorrect because corrective controls are used to fix problems that have been identified, such as adjusting journal entries to correct an error. Option D is incorrect because substantive controls is not a standard term. Substantive procedures are audit tests, not a type of internal control. (36) When performing a test of controls, an auditor finds that the controls are ineffective. How should the auditor respond? A. Issue an unqualified opinion. B. Perform additional substantive testing. C. Adjust the audit strategy to rely more on internal controls. D. Issue a disclaimer of opinion. Do you know the answer? Correct answer, B. Perform additional substantive testing. Explanation: option B is correct because if tests of controls reveal that controls are not operating effectively, the auditor cannot rely on them to reduce risk. Therefore, the auditor must increase their reliance on substantive procedures to obtain sufficient evidence about the financial statements. Option A is incorrect because finding ineffective controls increases audit risk and would not on its own support an unqualified opinion without further work. Option C is incorrect because the auditor would do the opposite. They would adjust the strategy to rely less on internal controls. Option D is incorrect because a disclaimer of opinion is only issued due to a major scope limitation, not typically as a direct result of ineffective controls. 37. Which audit procedure is used to gather evidence by reviewing and examining documents? A. Inquiry. B. Observation. C. Inspection. D. Analytical procedures. What do you think is the answer? Correct answer, C. Inspection. Explanation: option C is correct because inspection involves the auditor's examination of records or documents, whether internal or external, in paper, electronic or other media. This is a fundamental way to gather audit evidence. Option A is incorrect because inquiry involves seeking information from knowledgeable persons within or outside the entity. Option B is incorrect because observation consists of looking at a process or procedure being performed by others, such as observing an inventory count. Option D is incorrect because analytical procedures consist of evaluations of financial information through analysis of plausible relationships. (38) Which of the following is an auditor's responsibility under the AICPA Code of Professional Conduct? A. Performing all client duties with independence in fact and appearance. B. Conducting audits without regard to materiality thresholds. C. Focusing only on financial statement audits. D. Ensuring that internal controls are functioning. Can you guess the answer? Correct answer: A. Performing all client duties with independence in fact and appearance. Explanation: Option A is correct because the principle of independence is a cornerstone of the auditing profession. The AICPA Code of Professional Conduct requires auditors to be independent in both fact, meaning their mental state, and appearance, meaning how they are perceived by others. Option B is incorrect because materiality is a fundamental concept in auditing. Auditors must consider it when planning and performing the audit. Option C is incorrect because CPAs perform many services besides financial audits, such as tax, consulting, and review services, all of which are covered by the Code of Conduct. Option D is incorrect because management is responsible for ensuring internal controls are functioning. The auditor's responsibility is to assess those controls and their effectiveness. 39. What type of audit procedure is performed when the auditor recalculates figures in the financial statements to check their accuracy? A. Recalculation. B. Confirmation. C. Tracing. D. Vouching. Can you guess the answer? Correct answer: A. Recalculation. Explanation: Option A is correct because recalculation consists of checking the mathematical accuracy of documents or records. This can be done manually or electronically and is used to verify figures like depreciation expense, earnings per share, or the total of a sales journal. Option B is incorrect because confirmation involves obtaining evidence directly from a third party. Option C is incorrect because tracing follows a transaction from a source document to the financial records. Option D is incorrect because vouching follows a transaction from the financial records back to a source document. 40. Which component of internal control ensures that policies and procedures are effectively carried out? A. Monitoring. B. Control environment. C. Risk assessment. D. Control activities. What do you think is the answer? Correct answer: D. Control activities. Explanation: Option D is correct because control activities are the actions, established through policies and procedures, that help ensure management's directives to mitigate risks are carried out. They include activities like approvals, authorizations, verifications, and reconciliations. Option A is incorrect because monitoring is the process that assesses the effectiveness of the entire internal control system over time. Option B is incorrect because the control environment sets the overall tone and foundation for the control system. Option C is incorrect because risk assessment is the process of identifying and analysing relevant risks. 41. What is the primary purpose of a walkthrough in an audit? A. To verify the accuracy of financial statements. B. To understand the flow of transactions and identify potential risks. C. To perform substantive tests on financial data. D. To gather evidence from external parties. Can you guess the answer? Correct answer. B. To understand the flow of transactions and identify potential risks. Explanation. Option B is correct because a walkthrough involves tracing a transaction from its origination through the company's processes and information systems until it is reflected in the financial reports. This procedure helps the auditor confirm their understanding of the process, evaluate the design of controls, and determine if they have been implemented. Option A is incorrect because a walkthrough is not extensive enough to verify the overall accuracy of the financial statements. That requires substantive testing. Option C is incorrect because a walkthrough is a risk assessment procedure, not a substantive test. Option D is incorrect because a walkthrough uses the client's internal documents and processes. It does not involve gathering evidence from external parties. 42. Which of the following audit procedures test the completeness assertion for sales transactions? A. Vouching sales invoices to shipping documents. B. Tracing shipping documents to sales invoices. C. Recalculation of sales figures. D. Confirming sales with customers. Can you guess the answer? Correct answer. B. Tracing shipping documents to sales invoices. Explanation. Option B is correct because tracing from a source document, the shipping document, forward to the accounting records, the sales invoice and journal, ensures that every shipment that occurred was actually recorded as a sale. This directly tests for completeness. Option A is incorrect because vouching sales invoices back to shipping documents tests the occurrence assertion, verifying that every recorded sale corresponds to an actual shipment. Option C is incorrect because recalculation of sales figures tests the accuracy assertion. Option D is incorrect because confirming sales with customers primarily tests for existence and accuracy. (43) Which of the following is the most reliable type of audit evidence? A. Internally generated documents. B. Bank statements received directly by the auditor. C. Client inquiry responses. D. Board minutes prepared by management. Can you guess the answer? Correct answer. B. Bank statements received directly by the auditor. Explanation. Option B is correct because evidence is generally more reliable when it is obtained from independent sources outside the entity. A bank statement, especially when received directly by the auditor, is strong third-party evidence. Option A is incorrect because internally generated documents such as a client-prepared sales invoice are less reliable because they can be manipulated by the client. Option C is incorrect because client inquiry responses are subjective, can be biased, and must be corroborated with other evidence. Option D is incorrect because board minutes, while important, are prepared internally by the client and are therefore less reliable than externally generated evidence. 44. What's the purpose of the analytical procedures performed during the audit planning phase? A. To test the effectiveness of internal controls. B. To identify potential risk areas. C. To confirm account balances. D. To detect fraud. Can you guess the answer? Correct answer. B. To identify potential risk areas. Explanation. Option B is correct because analytical procedures performed during planning are used to enhance the auditor's understanding of the client's business and to identify areas that may represent specific risks. Unusual fluctuations or relationships can direct the auditor's attention to where material misstatements might exist. Option A is incorrect because testing the effectiveness of internal controls requires tests of controls, not analytical procedures. Option C is incorrect because analytical procedures can suggest that a balance is unreasonable, but they do not confirm it. Substantive tests of details are needed for confirmation. Option D is incorrect because while these procedures might uncover red flags for fraud, their primary purpose in the planning phase is broader risk identification. 45. Which of the following would be considered a weakness in internal control? A. Segregation of duties. B. Use of pre-numbered invoices. C. Lack of employee background checks. D. Regular reconciliation of bank accounts. What do you think is the answer? Correct answer. C. Lack of employee background checks. Explanation. Option C is correct because failing to perform background checks on employees in positions of trust, especially those with access to assets or financial records, creates a significant risk of fraud or theft. This is a weakness in the control environment. Option A is incorrect because segregation of duties is a key strength of an internal control system designed to prevent fraud. Option B is incorrect because using pre-numbered invoices is a control strength that helps ensure all transactions are recorded and accounted for, testing completeness. Option D is incorrect because regular bank reconciliations are a crucial detective control and represent a strength, not a weakness. (46) Which control ensures that authorized personnel approve transactions before they are recorded? A. Detective control. B. Approval control. C. Preventive control. D. Authorization control. Do you know the answer? Correct answer. D. Authorization control. Explanation. Option D is correct because authorization controls are a type of preventive control established to ensure that transactions are initiated and approved only by individuals with the proper authority. This prevents illegitimate or erroneous transactions from entering the system. Option A is incorrect because a detective control finds errors after they occur. Authorization is meant to stop them beforehand. Option B is incorrect because while functionally similar, authorization control is the more formal and standard term used in the context of internal control frameworks. Option C is incorrect because while an authorization control is a type of preventive control, authorization control is the more specific and descriptive answer for the function described. (47) Which assertion is being tested when an auditor verifies that expenses are recorded in the correct period? A. Completeness. B. Cutoff. C. Valuation. D. Accuracy. Do you know the answer? Correct answer. B. Cutoff. Explanation. Option B is correct because the cutoff assertion deals with whether transactions and events have been recorded in the correct accounting period. Verifying that expenses from the current year are not recorded in the next year, and vice versa, is a classic cutoff test. Option A is incorrect because completeness concerns whether all expenses that should be recorded have been recorded regardless of the period. Option C is incorrect because valuation relates to whether the expenses are recorded at the proper amount, which is more aligned with accuracy. Option D is incorrect because accuracy concerns whether the amounts of the expenses are recorded correctly without mathematical errors. (48) What is the auditor's responsibility in relation to a company's internal controls? A. To establish the internal controls. B. To design the company's control environment. C. To assess the effectiveness of the internal controls. D. To manage internal control deficiencies. Can you guess the answer? Correct answer. C. To assess the effectiveness of the internal controls. Explanation. Option C is correct because in a financial statement audit, the auditor's responsibility is to obtain an understanding of the client's internal controls to assess the risks of material misstatement. In an integrated audit, this responsibility extends to forming an opinion on the effectiveness of those controls. Option A is incorrect because management, not the auditor, is responsible for establishing the company's internal controls. Option B is incorrect because management is responsible for designing the control environment as part of their overall responsibility for internal control. Option D is incorrect because management is responsible for remediating or managing internal control deficiencies. The auditor is responsible for identifying and communicating them. (49) Which procedure involves following a transaction from initiation to recording? A. Vouching. B. Walkthrough. C. Analytical procedures. D. Reperformance. Do you know the answer? Correct answer. B. Walkthrough. Explanation. Option B is correct because a walkthrough is an audit procedure that traces a single transaction from its point of origin all the way through the company's accounting system to its final reporting. This helps the auditor understand the process flow and identify key controls. Option A is incorrect because vouching involves starting from the recorded amount and going backward to the source document. Option C is incorrect because analytical procedures involve analysing relationships and trends in data, not following a single transaction. Option D is incorrect because reperformance involves the auditor independently executing procedures or controls that were originally performed by client personnel. 50. Which of the following is an inherent limitation of internal control? A. Segregation of duties. B. Authorization procedures. C. Human error. D. Use of automated systems. What do you think is the answer? Correct answer. C. Human error. Explanation. Option C is correct because no matter how well an internal control system is designed, it can be undermined by inherent limitations. Human error, such as a mistake in judgment or a simple oversight, is a fundamental limitation that can cause a control to fail. Option A is incorrect because segregation of duties is a type of control, not a limitation. However, collusion between employees can override this control, which is another inherent limitation. Option B is incorrect because authorization procedures are a type of control, not a limitation. Option D is incorrect because the use of automated systems is generally a control strength, although risks related to IT systems do exist. You have reached the end of our first question set. For the free complete exam preparation, visit our website link in the description, where you find thousands more practice questions and comprehensive study guides. Thanks for studying with us today. See you in the next video.